Alright, what's up guys? You're probably wondering what I'm doing sitting here in front of a camera, but basically I'm going to be starting a new series on my Instagram account. I'm going to probably be posting these on YouTube too. And as you all know, the Beach Boys are my absolute favorite band. They're basically my entire life at this point. But I'm going to be starting my definitive Beach Boys album ranking. I'm going to be doing a video for every album of theirs, basically ranking them from my least favorite. So, not technically their worst, just my least favorite, which will happen to be their worst. You'll see in just a second. You can probably already hear it in the background. All the way up to my personal favorite, which I think is their best. So basically, all 30 albums. They have 29 studio albums, but I'm going to be doing 30. I'm including the Smile Sessions. I'm including Adult Child. Yes, those aren't actual studio albums, but I think they're important enough to their discography to include on here. And I'm not doing Stars and Stripes Volume 1, the country album. Never listened to it, never will. I've heard little bits and pieces of it, but it's just an absolute piece of shit from what I've heard. Nothing redeemable about it, just a completely pointless album. So, with that said, the worst Beach Boys album, my least favorite, number 30, released in 1992. I think it was on August 3rd, 1992. Summer in Paradise. Oh yeah, so this one is, if you don't know the backstory behind this album, it's very interesting. At this point in time, 5 years before this, the Beach Boys, not 5 years, 4 years. 4 years before this, the Beach Boys had released their first #1 hit, their biggest song in 20 years since Good Vibrations, with Kokomo. For those of you who know the song, you know how catchy it is, you know how big of a hit it was. And that song basically just launched them back into the limelight of being a popular band. After 20 years of just putting out albums and songs and not really gaining the same level of traction, you know, they had hits here and there, but it just wasn't the same since '66. After Good Vibrations, they just weren't the same, but Kokomo came out and boom, everybody cares about the Beach Boys again. They're on Full House, you know, John Stamos started playing with them. I think he actually got with them a little earlier, but, you know, in reality, they're blowing up, and they put out an album called Still Cruisin', which, in itself, is also a very interesting album that you'll be hearing from very soon, but that one it had a certain charm to it, you know. It was their first album 4 years after the Beach Boys self-titled. It had Kokomo on it, you know, it had the Wipeout cover with the Fat Boys, it had the 3 oldies tacked on at the end. It's a very interesting album, and I might add one I really enjoy. But in 1992, this was well after Brian Wilson had left the band again, you know. He had came back, you know, he had written a song for that album, and then he left again. I think I was when he was getting away from Landy, like at the very end of it, so he just wasn't present. So this essentially is a Mike Love solo album, completely. Most of the songs on here, I'm pretty sure, are either written or co-written by Mike Love and Terry Melcher, and there's like 3 or 4 covers on here. So yeah, there's a cover of the first song, and then the second side has 2 more covers, I think. For those of you who haven't heard it, it's very hard to describe how just fucking weird this album is. It's just an anomaly. I think at the time of the release, it's been reported that it sold less than 1,000 copies. I don't know if that's true or not, but what I do know is that it put Attic Records, the distribution company that put out this album, it put them out of business. That's how badly it sold. And, you know, it's a good reason for why nobody knows of it. But I think another reason is that it just plain fucking sucks. It's just an awful album. I think there's some songs on here that I enjoy, but for the most part, there's just so many factors. It was the first album recorded with Pro Tools, which is interesting, or one of the first. I don't know if it was the first, but if you go on Wikipedia and look at this album, you could see on a Mac it was recorded on an early version of like Pro Tools Quadra or whatever it's called. Very interesting. You think the Beach Boys, like, it's weird. So I'll just go through track by track, just give my thoughts. So in the background, you can hear it right now. This is actually a second track, but I'll go to the first track. So the first track on the album, Hot Fun in the Summertime, a cover of the Shangri-La's track, I'm pretty sure. Maybe that's the Under the Boardwalk. I don't remember exactly who did this song. Oh, no. Sly and the Family Stone. That, Shangri-La's is, I think, Under the Boardwalk, or Remember Walking in the Sand, one of those. Anyway, Hot Fun in the Summertime opens up this album, and the first thing you'll notice is the production. It is undescribably bad. It is just so overprocessed, so overdone. The snare drum, I'll let you listen. It's a machine gun. It just sounds like a fucking machine gun going off every 2 seconds. To be fair, I don't think this is a bad cover at all. I think it is actually one of the top 5 better tracks on the album. You know, for an album opener, it has good energy. The vocals are great, don't get me wrong. Like, the harmonies are great. Mike is very nasally, as he's been, like he was in the 80s, but actually sounds pretty good. Carl's vocal is great. And the main thing is just the production is just so fake. It's just so sterile. There's barely any real instruments, if any. Just drum machines, synthesizers, just fucking background noise and effects and stuff. So it's not a terrible opener, and I think it has good energy, but it's just shallow. It's just hollow, a hollow husk of a song. Completely just does not do justice to the original at all. You know, as I said, this original Sly and the Family Stone, that one's I think from '69, and that's just a great song, but obviously this one's worse, but it's not the worst thing I've ever heard. So I give that one, you know, probably like a 6 out of 10, which is not terrible, honestly. It opens off the album on a decent note, and I think that is one of the better songs on the record. Song 2, we get a cover of the Beach Boys' first hit, not even their first hit, their first single they ever released back in '61, Surfin'. But of course, they had to just overdo it and just shit all over it with production. If you can hear in the song in the background, that's the next one. We'll get to that real soon. But Surfin', the original's very amateur, it's very raw, but, you know, it has a certain charm to it. You know, the guys at the time, Mike was 20, Brian, I think, was 18 or 19. I think he was 18. Dennis was 16, Carl was 14, and Al was, I think, also 18. So they were just kids, basically. When they made this, they were just kids. The first one, I mean, the first version of Surfin'. And it has a certain charm, you know. Very early 60s, very bluesy, very reminiscent of, like, you know, their 50s influences. But what they do on here is just, it's just, like, sad. It's not terrible, again, but it's so bland, and it's just, the production is just so much. The snare drums, Mike's trying to do like some fucking hip 90s rap shit, and it just does not work. It's based on a good song, again, like the first one, so it's actually not too bad, but it's just pointless. There's no reason for it to exist. Okay, here we go. Song number 3. You can hear it. Summer of Love. Mike Loves Magnum Opus. No, it's not Mike Loves Magnum Opus. Okay. This one is, if you're into the Beach Boys at all and you're into the community, you know this one's a fucking meme, but man, oh my, there's so many things to say. What if Mike Love did a rap song for the Baywatch TV show? I like this part. You know, it's catchy, it's upbeat, I mean, it's creepy as hell. They're 50-year-old dudes singing about wanting, like, these 20-year-old fucking teenage... Not teen, I don't even know. It's just weird. But it's just like, what is this? It just does not make sense. Mike Love's voice is just, like, this nasally as all hell. There's, you know, record scratches in the beginning. Like, when you hear that, you know, in the music video, if you've seen it, Brian Wilson is in it, even though he's not on this album at all. Which he's in the video for some reason, which I think was recorded like 2 years after this album came out. This song was planned for The Simpsons, like a Simpsons thing, but of course they rejected it. But anyway, Brian was in the music video, and it's just sad. Like, you have this piece of shit song. I'm not gonna say it. It's a piece of shit song. It's catchy. I kind of enjoy it, but just to be frank, it's a bad song. Just not a good song at all. So that one just rubs me the wrong way. I mean, the cheese is kind of fun. It's super cheesy, but it's just like, how does this happen? You know, okay, next song, Island Fever, Kokomo 2. If you've seen I don't remember the dude's channel, but he does this series called Train Records, and he did this album where he just went over it, basically. Here it goes, called Island Fever. He basically says this album is shit covers and shit Kokomos, and I agree. And it's just, it's a catchy song, it's breezy, it's nice, it's inoffensive, but, like, it sounds exactly like Kokomo from, you know, the Whisper intro. Just, it's an earworm song, you know, it's an earworm song sticks in your head, but it's just pointless. No reason to exist whatsoever. It falls flat. It just doesn't go anywhere. Next up, Still Surfing. You know, you had Surfing, and now you have Still Surfing. It's about Surfer Joe. Yeah, he's still surfing after all of these years, you know. It's just another song for me. I think there's some good melodies on the song, and I think it has one of the better atmospheres out of all the songs in the album. Has one of the better atmospheres, but that's not saying a lot because this album is sterile as all could fucking be. So, again, not horrible so far. Everything besides Summer of Love, which is just a head scratcher. You know, that one I don't think is that one is not good, but is not the worst thing I've ever heard. It's just that one's a head scratcher. But you know, so far it's not terrible. You know. Next up, Slow Summer Dancin'. Bruce Johnston wrote this one, and I think it's Slow Summer Dancin', One Summer Night. I think he paired it with like an older song, so it's kind of like his new version, his old version. This one does absolutely nothing for me, just completely bland, 90s, completely contemporary, like a contemporary 90s ballad, but done by dudes in their 50s, and it doesn't make any sense. It's purely just in one ear out the other, just completely boring. Side 2 actually opens up with a not bad song. I think the first song on Side 2, Strange Things Happen, is one of the top 2 songs on the album. It has a decent opening line. It's very catchy, and it's not that cheesy. It's like an actually interesting idea, very 90s, it's more 80s actually, but you know, a contemporary sound. It's not great or anything, don't get me wrong. It's a very bland song, but you know, for what we've heard so far, you know, while the first side wasn't awful, nothing was actually good. I wouldn't call anything on the first side good. It was just mostly just inoffensive, bland 90s past their prime Beach Boys, but with the shittiest production you've ever heard. Strange Things Happen, on the other hand, is actually not bad. I think would actually call that a decent song. Not good, but decent. So I kind of like that one. I like Mike's vocal. Remember Walking the Sand? Cover absolutely ruined. It's just strange. It is just completely strange. The fucking, you know, the weird backing vocals in the beginning, you know, that weird organ thing. This one just, out of it's actually 5 covers, 2 Beach Boys covers, 3 other covers, but this one is just not one of my favorites either. It just doesn't go anywhere. It's weird. Next though, best song of the album, and it's actually a very decent song. It's not pretty decent, it's actually very decent. Lahaina Aloha. This one, you know, if you haven't heard this album, and if you want to take one thing away from it that's not bad, I recommend this song. Lahaina Aloha is not a bad song at all. It has a catchy melody, it has a good ambience to it. Mike and Carl's vocals actually are both very good. I do like that one a lot. Under the Boardwalk is probably one of my least favorite songs in the album. It's completely another cover. I don't remember who did this one, but it's just completely forgettable. Absolutely nothing I remember from it. And that one I can't say anything about that one. So we're down to the last 2 songs. So the last original song on the album is a title track, and a lot of people seem to like this one. And while I agree, it's not as just plain up outdated and just tacky as almost everything else on this album. It's not bad. The chord progression is the most basic you can get. It's just reminiscing about the old days, but it's nice. It's breezy. It's not terrible. And my main problem with this album is that it's not terrible, but it's not good. It's just so fucking bland, and it's just not helped out by the last track on the album. So, for all of you know, Dennis Wilson was the Beach Boys drummer, and back in 1970, he wrote possibly his best song, him and Greg Jacobson, but I don't know how much Greg did. I think maybe he was a lyricist or something. Dennis Wilson wrote the song by himself, basically. No help from Brian or anybody. And what came out was one of the best songs of Beach Boys ever released. You know, yes, it was featured in Full House, we'll get to that, but just the original 1970 version on Sunflower is just absolute bliss, just beautiful. You know, it's really sad knowing what happened to Dennis, but it's just a beautiful ballad to love, and it just makes you feel good. Now, what do they do? On this album, they made a version, and John Stamos from Full House comes and, you know, sings the lead, and if you've seen Full House and the wedding scene where they get married in it, where he's Uncle Jesse and he sings the song at the wedding, that piano version is actually not bad. I think it actually sounds pretty good. But pair it with this awful production. He does this really, really just... I don't know how to describe it. His lead is just so fake. He tries to do like a Dennis imitation, and it just sounds like he's the biggest piece of shit douchebag you've ever heard. You know, he's putting on this voice that sounds like just completely wrong for such a sweet song. It's just... It's like taking a sweet song, you know, a sweet ballad, and just putting fucking steel drums, just synthesizers all over it, guitar solos. You know, it's like taking John Lennon's Imagine and putting fucking a drum machine and like just pentatonic shredding. It doesn't make any sense. And you know, Beach Boys, I love them to death, my favorite band, and I even the rest of this album, it's not good, but I can get behind it. You know, I can squeeze even the tiniest bit of enjoyment out of most of the songs on here. But this version of Forever with John Stamos is absolutely my least favorite thing the Beach Boys ever did. It's hard even calling it a Beach Boys song, because I think besides the backing vocals with, you know, the boys on it, John Stamos was the only one doing I don't know if he did the instruments. I think they're, again, maybe on this one the drums weren't, but I'm pretty sure the drums are programmed on this one. I think he plays the guitar solos. But it is just terrible. It is absolutely fucking abysmal. The worst song from this band. I absolutely hate it. You know, this album's already too long. I think it's like 45 minutes long, so you've already sat through just a bunch of bland shit with like 2 decent songs. But then you get this last song, Forever, and it's disrespectful. You know, if Dennis was alive and he heard this, he would beat the shit out of John Stamos, or just fucking sue the band or something, because this is just... It's not right. You know, I get they were trying to do something good, you know, take this classic song and rework it to be more with the times, but it doesn't work. It's just completely terrible. You know, take a classic song, make it like a fucking glam rock 80s big fucking loud noise machine gun snare. Like, everything else before this is already not good, but then this last song just comes up and it's like, holy shit, why would they do this? And it just leaves you hating the album at the end, which I don't think you should. I think a lot of people call this a 0 out of 10 album, absolutely worthless, irredeemable, and while some songs are, I would agree, I think most of it is not terrible. Now, most of it is pretty bad. It ranges from pretty bad to bland to decent. But this last one, I could see why people hate this album, because it just ruins everything. It's absolutely terrible. Just not good at all. And you know, I think this album had potential. I think, you know, after Kokomo, I think the band, if they tried harder, maybe if they brought Brian back in, well, I don't know if he was even able to with the Landy situation, but even without Brian, even if they just tried a little harder, if they tried to write more original songs that didn't sound like shit Kokomos, if they didn't do terrible covers, I think this could have worked out a lot better. The songs I can tolerate on this one, Hot Fun in the Summertime is not a bad opener. Island Fever is completely pointless in a copy of Kokomo, but it's catchy. I'll give it that, it's catchy. Strange Things Happen, I really like the lead. I do. I think it's an alright song, and I think it has some good moments about it. And then Lahaina Aloha is genuinely good. I think that is actually a pretty good song. But everything else is just completely forgettable, made even worse by terrible production. There's nothing about this album that I would recommend you listen to. Like, I would never come back to this album just to have a good time listening to music. You know, if you want to hear anything, if you want to hear what this album sounds like, but you don't want to go through the torture of listening to it, I say Lahaina Aloha is a good song. Like, that song will give you a good idea of like the sound of it, of how bad the production is, but it'll actually be a better side of the album. But, you know, Forever, obviously, Under the Boardwalk, Remember Walking in the Sand, Summer of Love, those are just awful. They're just terrible songs, terrible covers. Just not good. They're just completely not good. So you know, this is not going to be my best review. As I do each one, I'll get a little more comfortable in front of the camera, but, you know, for my first review, just venting about this album right here. So, 30 out of 30, my least favorite Beach Boys album, an F tier album. I'll do a tier list. I'll post that once I've got them all up. But, you know, there's very few redeemable qualities about this album, and personally, if I were to give it a score out of 10, I would give it like a 3.5. Maybe, probably a 3 or a 3.5. I'm gonna say a 3.5, just because there isn't, besides Forever, the album isn't the worst thing I've ever heard, but it is mostly completely forgettable and bland, and there's not that many songs that I would ever come back to. So, what I have the cassette version, by the way. If you know, the LP, the vinyl, is just, they only pressed it once in South Korea when it came out. It's like $2,000 if you want to get it now. But no, I got the cassette, and, you know, I've listened to this album probably 5 or 6 times, and it's just an anomaly. The Beach Boys have a few anomalies in their discography, but this is the biggest one. This is the biggest offender right here. So if you want to take away anything from this review, check this out if you really want to know what the absolute worst Beach Boys anything is. If you just want to hear the Beach Boys at their lowest, this is a good place to go. But if you don't want to, which is completely understandable, I don't know why anybody would want to do that. If you just want to hear what they sounded like at this time, Lahaina Aloha, Summer of Love, just to hear the fucking Mike Love rap, and I'd probably say Strange Things Happen's a good one too. But yeah, 3 out of 10. A very bad album, but not the worst thing in the world. So yep, 30 out of 30, my least favorite Beach Boys album. I'll catch you guys in the next video when I go to 29, my 29th Beach Boys album. So just leave your thoughts down in the comments of what you think about this album if you heard it, and if you haven't, I recommend it, but beware, it's not amazing. So anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Hope you enjoyed the review. I know it wasn't a great one. I haven't recorded myself that much, and it's kind of weird sitting in front of a camera, but, you know, overall, just Beach Boys fans, non-Beach Boys fans, what are your thoughts on this one? Alright, anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Alright, peace out.